Hello, welcome everyone. Today I'm joined by a good friend of mine, Jim. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Caleb.
Good to see you.
Appreciate it. Good to see you.
How you doing today?
Fantastic. It's a beautiful fall day in Columbus, Ohio.
This is the days we dreamed of, am I right?
Absolutely. When you're a car guy, these are days to go out and drive.
Oh yeah. What are we sitting here in front of today?
Yeah, so this is my 2017 Alfa Romeo Giulia.
This is another dream car of mine, so I'm a little jealous sitting here next to you with it.
Well, here it is. Let's enjoy it.
Yeah. So I know the story, but tell everyone, how did you end up getting this car, and what did you own before this?
Yeah, so
Story.
the Alfa Romeo thing bit me a long time ago, long before you even thought about being born, as it turns out. Back in the early 90s, I got hooked on IndyCar racing. And my first Indy 500 was 1991. And Alfa Romeo sponsored an IndyCar team that year. And even though I grew up loving cars and, but I was like Corvettes and, I liked Camaros and I liked all the things that, a growing boy likes. When I got to Indy and I started reading about Alfa Romeo, I just was shocked how little I knew about the brand. And the brand is really old. It was founded. It's a little bit confusing because Alfa, ALFA, is actually an acronym for the first part of the company that was established in 1910 back in Milan, Italy. And they didn't merge with Nicola Romeo until 1918. So it's a really, really old car brand. And also, a lot of people don't know that it's where Enzo Ferrari had his first job. And it was born in racing, and they were dominant in racing in the early years. So anyway, I was fascinated with Alfa Romeos. I was hooked and started looking. And they weren't selling that many cars in the U.S. at the time. They only had two models. They had the 164L, which was a sports sedan like the Giulia. And then they also had the Spider, their convertible. And never could afford one. I was early in my career, and I thought, well, someday, right? Someday I was going to have one. And lo and behold, by the early 2000s, 164 showed up on early Auto Trader, and I just bought it sight unseen. I bought it on the internet, had it trucked to my house, and that was the first Alfa Romeo I owned. So it was a 1991 Alfa 164L, and I loved that car. And put a ton of miles on it. It was really unique, and when I sold it, 30 seconds after I sold it, I regretted it. And I'm like, I've got to have another Alfa Romeo. And it was a long time before another one came along. It was the late 2000, somewhere around 2010, maybe, 09, 2010. My wife sent me to Kroger, and I came home with an Alfa Romeo. It's a true story. But I'd been looking at this car. It was an 85 Spider Veloce.
Yeah. And
this guy in Dublin had it and was trying to get rid of it. I looked at it, made him an offer. He declined the offer, and I said, all right, well, I'm around. And so it just so happened on that trip that my oldest son, Michael, and I were going to Kroger for some sort of grocery run. We went to his house and bought the car and came home with our second Alfa Romeo. So that car was really, I bought that one for him to learn manual. And because if you can drive manual on that car, you can drive manual on about anything because it's pretty vague. You have to go fishing for your gears. And wonderful car to drive. But when the Giulia came out, I was so excited. First, the 4C, came out. It's one of my favorite cars.
Such a beautiful car.
It's so perfect in so many ways. And I really wanted a 4C, but it's really hard to live with day to day. And the prices didn't budge forever, and I kind of wrote that dream off for a while. And I said, by the time I can afford one, my knees won't be able to get in and out of it or something. Yeah. But then, in the meantime, I had a Maserati Coupe Cambio Corsa. Wonderful car. Drove it for over a year, maybe 2 years. If that car would have had a manual, I would have kept it.
Yeah.
For forever and a day because it was a great car.
Yeah.
But this car popped up. When I was looking for the Maserati, when I found the Maserati, but they wouldn't take my offer on it, so I kind of walked away from it. But it turned out somebody from the dealership had bought it and drove it for that same time period, and then traded up at the same dealership. So it popped back up on the internet, and I'm like, hang on, I wonder. This is when used car prices were starting to go crazy.
Yeah.
And we basically did a key for key trade on it.
Oh.
And I drove the Maserati to Davenport, Iowa. Got up at 7 in the morning. Drove all day back roads in Ohio and Indiana, and ended up at Davenport. Was there for about an hour. We did the deal. I got this car and turned around and drove all the way home, and cue up the Smoking the Bandit music and Eastbound and Down and all that.
Yeah.
And I got home at about 12:30. I called my wife in Indianapolis, and I'm like, I'm not stopping. I'm too close. So that's how I came upon this car. So it's 5 years old and had some miles, which was perfect because I didn't want it perfect, because then you sweat it. So it had just enough rock chips and door dings. I'm like, perfect. I can drive that car every day.
Oh man, this is gonna be such a good daily driver car.
It is. The car does so many things well. So if you just want to dawdle along in traffic, it's comfortable enough for all of that. It has a good trunk. Back seat's reasonable. It's about the size of a 3 Series BMW.
Yeah.
But I like it because it had actually less tech. It wasn't over-screened. There's still binnacles with needles on the gauges and buttons. And I love that tactile feedback that you get from a button. So I like that aspect of it, that it was more of a performance car than it was a technology. It wasn't a rolling iPad.
Yeah.
And which is what I didn't want.
Yeah.
And the chassis is phenomenal. The car handles really well. It just doesn't flex. The car is super rigid without being harsh. They've done it right.
Oh, yeah.
The car is fantastic to drive.
I think it's one of the most beautiful sedans on the road, personally. I mean, just this front end alone. I mean, every time I see it, I'm like, oh, there's a Giulia. Oh, there's a Giulia.
I do that and I own one. So, I see another Giulia owner, and I think they may be a lease or something, and maybe not as in love with it as I am, but I'm like waving, and they're looking at me like, who's this idiot? And, but I do. One of the aspects I like about this car, on the pitch of the upper side of the door where the windows are, it's called the tumble home.
Mm-hmm.
And this has a really steep tumble home. So it gives it this low, wide, kind of aggressive look. And it's really handsome. You can feel good taking it to a steakhouse, or you can feel good taking it to a car meet. And they're unique. You don't pass yourself on the road every day. So I like that part of the Alfa Romeo brand too. Brand, to me, I don't buy a car to tell other people what kind of car it is. I buy the car so I'm happy with myself.
Oh yeah.
It's that old adage: if you don't turn around and look in the parking lot, you probably didn't buy the right car.
That's one of my favorite sayings. I do the same thing with my cars all the time. I'm like, oh, can I just get one more look at this before I go inside?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, I appreciate cars that you don't have to buy the top of the line trim package for it to look good.
Yeah. Because
some cars, you see them in their base model version, and you're like, it lost something. It needed all the wings and dive planes and vents and all that stuff. And this is a base model.
Yeah. And
it still had a lot of eyeball. So you knew that the basic design of the car, it was well executed because it looks good without all the trim. I really ended up liking the base model version of it. I kept thinking to myself, oh, when I buy this car, I'm going to add this, I'm going to add this, and I'm going to add that. I've done nothing.
Oh yeah.
I threw a K&N air filter in it and ran it through the car wash, and that's about it. And then just drive it every day.
Yeah. Do you have any interest in the Quadrifoglio version, or?
Yeah, I would. I love the Quadrifoglio. Actually, it was the first Giulia I drove, and you didn't know how sinister of a car it was because it had really good manners in normal traffic, normal conditions, puttering around a parking lot and in traffic. Yeah. But it was a beast. It was 500 horsepower, right where you want it, and again, that super rigid chassis that can handle it. So I think I probably would, but as a second or third car, I'm not sure I'd want it as a daily driver because I think they are a little more fickle with their maintenance.
Are there any things you don't like about the Giulia, or?
Yeah, and it's more things that I don't like about modern cars.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. On the early cars, with this car in particular, there's no button on the dashboard to shut off traction control, and I hate traction control. It really should have a way to defeat traction control. I would really like that.
Yeah.
The auto stop start to save gasoline. I really, on my wife's car, once you shut it off and defeat it, it stays that way every time you turn it on.
Yeah.
This car, every time you turn it on, you have to shut it. I have to shut it off because it drives me crazy.
Yeah.
And the tire pressure sensors are super sensitive. So on a day like this morning, I know there's the tire pressures aren't low, but it shot me an alarm because the ambient temperature is cold. And and I'm really old, and this is the first car I've owned that doesn't have an in-dash CD player because I've got stacks and stacks of CDs all over the place. So I'm like, dang it. Other than that, those are really minor things. The major mechanical bits of the car, I love the transmission. It's an auto stick, so you can click up and down if you want to play race car driver, or you can just put it in fully automatic and let it decide what it wants to do.
What would you say is your favorite story associated with the car?
With this car so far, it's been my trip back from Davenport.
Yeah.
I was trying to get used to the car at the same time that I jumped on freeways. When I drove my trade-in out, I took all back roads just because I didn't want rock chips or some big delaminated piece of retread semi tire going through it, before I traded it in.
Exactly.
So I stuck to the back roads, and it was slow moving, lots of country radio, lots of diners, and just took my time. But going back, I'm like, I just got to get home. Yeah. So you jump on the interstate and wind it up. But I was trying to figure out the controls, which are relatively simple. But one thing I didn't realize is that the car has really dark tinted windows. Mm-hmm. The previous owner put them on, and I actually think they might be too dark. But in the middle of the night, you can't see anything, right? So I'm looking around trying to read signs. I'm like, what is going on? I'm in a cave. So I'm flying back, and that was just so much fun because you just don't get those opportunities for a road trip by yourself.
Yeah. Much
less in the middle of the night with a brand new car. I'm looking forward to more road trips because it's a really, really good car on highway or back roads. So I'm starting to plot road trips.
You got where do you want to go? Where do you want to take it?
Well, I've always wanted to do the Route 66 thing, right? Yeah. I'm not sure this is the car for that, because I might need something classic and American for that. Yeah. But I would like to do a West Coast run, and I've got a buddy who lives down in Oklahoma that's right off of 66, and then another brother or a buddy who lives in California. And so I'm thinking, well, maybe we go get some fish tacos or something on Santa Monica Pier. And so I would like to do the cross-country deal. I'd love to take it up to the Northeast. We go up to Maine almost every year. So it would be fun to go through kind of backroads New England.
Yeah.
Get off the interstates and get into the Green Mountains.
Yeah.
And tool around up in New England would be a ton of fun, too.
I definitely want to make some trips out on my own, too. Like Coda. Certainly Americans, I want to go down there sometime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a great trip. We went to that race a year ago, last fall, and it's crazy the way the town embraces Formula One.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a bit of a Formula One nerd, and I haven't missed a race since either, watching it on TV, in person, since 1991. And back then it was so hard to watch F1 because it was tape delayed at 2 a.m. on ESPN 7 or whatever, and it was hard to be a Formula One fan. And now with Drive to Survive, all these new fans have come in, which is great because it's brought more attention in the U.S. and ultimately more racetracks. But Alfa's back in Formula One, which unfortunately they're not going to extend their deal. They're exiting, but that's been a ton of fun to show up. And we were at their hospitality last fall, and I was just nerding all over the place because they had their own little coffee bars set up and all of this Alfa Romeo swag, and you're just like, give me everything. I'll take it all.
Did you take the Giulia down there?
No, we flew down. We flew down, and we probably could have made it back faster because we had so many flight screw-ups coming back that I definitely could have beat the plane, that's for sure.
So, last question. I know you said you're planning on keeping the Giulia, but do you have any intent on getting that 4C like you were saying earlier?
I'd love to, but the prices just won't budge.
Yeah.
They've been at hovering at that, 50 or 55,000 or whatever. I would love it. I was surprised, getting in it, the egress is a little rough in that vehicle, but once you're in it, it's not that much different than like a 996 or a 997 Porsche 911. Mm-hmm. That once you're in, it's actually was fairly comfortable. So, personally, I think I could daily drive it, but I don't know. I don't know that I'll ever get there. I'd love to have one.
Yeah.
Just because to me, the styling of the car is so bold. And to have a monocoque carbon fiber mid-engine car at that price range is just bonkers. It's fantastic. I have gotten to drive one, and it was like driving a go-kart. I just could not wipe the stupid smile off of my face for days.
Yeah. Well, hey, you want to take this car for a spin?
Let's go.
Hey,
Sounds good. Let's do it. Yeah, so the suspension on this car, I always keep it in dynamic, so it has 3 driving modes. But I love the suspension on it because, again, it doesn't beat you up, but you still get a really taunt ride.
Yeah. It's a pretty good sound right there.
Yeah, I like the little turbo wastegate pop. Is kind of fun. Oh, this is another fun little thing too. As you can see here, it has a little G meter.
Oh yeah.
So I think any car that has a G meter is my friend.
You can see how much G you're pulling through corners like 130R.
You're right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. What's fun about it too is it will hold a gear. So if you go out to pass somebody, even in automatic mode, it'll stay in that gear because it's a little like sitting there going, "Are we going? Are we still going? Do you want to keep going?"
I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
Man, this thing does drive pretty well. This is a pretty good car.
all around bang for the buck. It's really hard to beat these cars.
Yeah. I'm taking notes for when the time comes for me to try and get one of these.
Just widen your search and don't be afraid to, road trip to get it and drive it home.
Yeah. Oh,
that's a fun way to get to know a car.
That's half the fun.
I think it is. I've always had this fantasy of going to one of those big auctions, the Bear Jackson or a Mika or something like that.
Yeah.
Buy a car and drive it home.
Oh.
I think that'd just be a blast.
Yeah, buy a one-way plane ticket out there. Just bring a nice.
Yeah, just commit. Commit. Like I'm going.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say, if you made it this far in the video, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. It truly means the world to me, and I cannot say thank you enough. Last thing I'll say, stay tuned for more content to come soon. All glory to God. God bless.